afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the panelists also to be here. Uh, I guess while the topic is very exciting and we indeed shared a lot of interesting conversations before the session as well, I'm sure everyone in the room has had one of the two experiences. Either you had the joyous experience of the transaction going through, or maybe a very frustrating experience of, let's say, a clunky fintech app not working for you the way it wants to, right? So maybe in today's discussion, we'll cover different aspects of how AI especially has been utilized by key BFSI brands across here and what they are doing, right? How they are strategizing to make sure that AI is incorporated either in the front end or in the back end, either on data. And yeah, based on that, we'll also get a lot of amazing ideas today. So maybe I'll start off with Nishant, you itself. Uh, from Paisabazaar's, I would say, vantage point, how is it that you are envisioning, right, AI to play a pivotal role?
So, I mean, the answer is fundamentally simple. See, we have very fragmented businesses within Paisabazaar, or most fintech who are not driving a particular purpose have many businesses that we do. So, for example, we have lending, we have credit cards, we have a savings business that's coming up, etc. So, it's a customer experience is what we are actually trying to drive with AI. And when I say that, what it means is that, for example, if there's a profiling level understanding that we can drive, there's an experience, because see, we are a very call center heavy business, like many other banks and fintechs, right? So we have a lot of understanding of what the customer is saying, what the sentiment is, engagement data, trying to consolidate it and give a contextual experience to the customer is what we are actually using AI for, and we are on that path. I wouldn't say that we've achieved what we want to do, but we are on that path, and that's how we are seeing AI to be a very important use. And we've seen this even with our partner company, Policybazaar, that we've seen a lot of success there. Plus, another important aspect of AI, which actually is a bigger priority for us, is the fraud and risk detection, right? Because that comes in extremely handy in terms of improving experiences of the customer, improving the books of the business. Because today, we've realized that, right? People are extremely smart. They know exactly how to find loopholes. They know exactly how to game the system, and that's where AI comes in plays a very, very important role. So both from a customer standpoint and the business standpoint, a conjunction of the two is how we see AI actually solving a lot of stuff for us.
Interesting. I am sure we all know the fraudsters are also getting more smarter with AI. Yeah. But over to you, Prashant. I guess I really am curious, right? At JAR, especially when we are thinking of an application that meant to make investing easier, right? How are you leveraging AI? Is it similar to the buckets that Nishant mentioned, or there are some new approaches?
It's very much on the same line like everyone else. Like what is at the end of the day AI is basically we are working with bunch of data through the lens of an algorithm, right? So we use AI primarily for enhancing our understanding of user behavior as well as kind of communicating it in a more targeted way. So in first bucket, basically we look at a lot of SMS data, and by looking at an SMS data, you can easily tell that okay, this person tend to spend this much money during this hour of the day, during this time of the month, and that kind of gives us a very broad understanding that okay, for this person, it's right time. This is the right time to nudge him to invest that much of money on an everyday basis. This is the consideration threshold of the person. That kind of like earlier that used to be a Herculean task. Now algorithms are smart enough to kind of glean that insight on sometime on a runtime basis. So that's one. Other is essentially AI also gives us the capability to micro segment the user. So if you want to communicate some message about like a special offer or a certain feature to a micro segment, like people who are from Kannada but living in Mumbai, that kind of micro segmenting and communication opportunities also enabled by this thing. So we are using it in both ways.
Basically, you're making AI work for you so that you can try and segment the users.
Right now, in some cases, when it is backend, AI does the work. In some cases, when it's directly facing the customer in form of a UI and all, we still have human in the loop.
I guess, yeah, that's a good point. I guess you're still keeping human in loop. Interesting. Over to you, Prateek. Like, I am definitely curious about, how at Angel One you are trying to incorporate AI and what's the path forward that you are envisioning?
Sure. So there are basically two things that we are working on initially. It's one, bringing in more efficiency in what we do. And I think there were these 2-3 buzzwords about 2 years back, right? 2-3 years back. Things like hyper personalization and precision marketing. Sabko karna tha, but the models never helped us do it because there was never enough processing power to really go hyper. What we used to do, theek hai, karna to hai, but then let's create 4 or 5 different cohorts, high, medium, low, and let's do high frequency for high and mid frequency for, that's what we used to do, right? With these really powerful models coming in, we've started seeing scope for hyper personalization now. I think if I have to give an example with Angel One, right? We have this daily newsletter which goes out at 6 p.m. in the evening to about 10 million users. 10 million users, that's 1 crore users every day, right? When we started this out, it's for generic newsletter which used to land on everybody's inbox, and typical read rates of about 5-6%, which are massy emailers. Email marketers ko pata hoga, this is like a decent open rate for emailers. With these models and with the efficiency coming in, what we are able to do is to identify what stocks a user is interested in, what kind of sectors they are investing in, what are some searches that they've done on the app. And now this newsletter particularly is personalized to these users. As much as the subject line, for example, I'm getting slightly more micro just to put my point, right? The subject line becomes essential, for example, for a newsletter. Now I'm able to sort of personalize subject lines for 1 crore users. Suddenly my open rates have gone from 6% to 15%. Suddenly the repeat users has gone up by a huge amount. So to sort of conclude here, it's like we are able to scale because of these models now. Instead of going really broad based, we are able to go slightly more pointed. Yeah.
Interesting. So the takeaway that I have from what you're doing right now is definitely exploiting the content AI side of things, and also going ahead and trying and nurturing similar contexts in the journey so that you predict and maybe show them the relevant options.
Correct. With time constraint in mind. All this is done in 2.5 hours. If I had to imagine this 3 years back, it would have taken me a week to do it. Now I'm able to do it every day in 2.5 hours. So that's the beauty that is coming in.
That's true. That's true. That's interesting. So Tarun, my question to you would be, let's take an example, right? We know AI has been around here for quite some time now. And as I hear, you are a veteran and you're passionate about AI as well. But I don't think so artificial intelligence is any longer just about, personalization or just about creating some kind of patterns or generative AI, right? I guess we are at a very tangential point where it's going above and beyond that, right? So what do you think? Where is it that we are headed, and how Zuno is trying to incorporate AI in this entire strategy?
No, absolutely. First of all, thank you. Great to be here. I mean, we all know that AI has significantly risen in prominence over the last few years, and thanks to Gen AI and some of the capabilities through which most of the world have witnessed the power of AI. Now, firstly, that is thanks to what I think Prateek also mentioned, the compute and the storage capabilities which were not available earlier. Secondly, it is also due to the customer expectation which have significantly risen, right? 24/7 availability is table stakes, always on, 10-minute delivery, this, that. So, the expectations have really gone up. Now, businesses like us, we have to keep pace with it. But, I mean, at Zuno, we are optimistic about the technology, but we are cautious also. Because while we want to leverage all the capabilities of AI to enhance our efficiency, but we don't want to deplete our resources in the frenzy, right? So that requires some, I would say, strategic flexibility. And yes, while we explore, we experiment, and our aim is speed to value. But then we go at rapid prototyping to see what works, what's working, what's not working for us. What's important is to really see that there are some custom off-the-shelf product solutions which you could use for your tasks which are sort of commoditized, but you build what you want to be your differentiator for your business. So I think that's been our approach, and obviously some of our other peers, they are trying different things with the capabilities available. Insurance is seeing major, I would say, digital transformation and disruption. There's various areas of, I would say, impact which we are seeing, whether it is in customer service, fraud detection, claims, underwriting, pricing. But yes, I think there are some use cases which will manifest, earlier than the others. What we see mostly are, we begin with chatbots. Those also have evolved a lot, right? Earlier we used to have, they were mostly knowledge assistants, but now they're fairly evolved. Slowly we'll see far more, we want to see far more risk management or risk assessments or pricing being done using these models. So that's
I guess, it's interesting. That's obviously a very interesting viewpoint as well. Let's say, when I think about normally what has changed over time, right? In the past, we were still trying to get data in one place. We were still trying to collect data at the right points, making sure at least we have data stored, right? And now we are in a wave where we are at least trying to harmonize it, create a unified profile, right? And which is where I would say I would have a second question for you, Nishant. You have a lot of data, right? Be it Policybazaar, be it your time now with Paisabazaar, there's lot of data. And I know if I'm not getting a network anywhere, still I'm going to get a call from Paisabazaar. So it's a good thing. Like, no branding is a bad branding, I would say. But yeah, like, I'm curious, right? There's a lot of data. And right now, I would say data is a luxury to have for any company and brand. So how are you thinking of utilizing it? And maybe not a direct application to AI, but how are you thinking to be ready as a data foundation for AI?
See, I think as PB FinTech, right now I'm going to take a little bit of a bird eye view of this, right? If you go to any institution, whether it is a traditional bank or it's a FinTech or a group like ours, right? We've realized that eventually it is all about the experience that you deliver to the customer. Now, giving you an example, like for example, if you followed the news, you would realize that PB FinTech is also opening hospitals of its own, right? The core principle behind that is because we realize the problem statement is that the hospitals today are actually made for the doctors and not the patients, right? So that's a problem to solve. Now, with that ethos, if you look at data that sits with any company, if you're not able to use and segment that data to improve an experience of the customer, right, it's very, very important. And that's how we see it. To give you an example, right, for example, today in Paisabazaar, we have a calling workforce about 4,000 people, right? That's a lot of people. Now, of course, if you look at those 4,000 people, you will see that there is a difference in terms of quality that a particular person comes with versus a different person, right? So how do I make sure that I'm able to map the experience of a customer who wants an American Express like experience with the agent or the advisor who can provide that is one perspective to it. The other experience is, for example, today if I have I have 5 businesses, right? If I can understand what is the customer looking for or what is his or her propensity to engage with me based on his or her information is an experience that I'll be able to create, right? And as an outcome, right, there are 2 things that typically come out of it. One is that you build some trust and loyalty with the customer, right? And that's, I think, something which is very, very valuable, because today, if you look at any business, there are hundreds of different businesses doing the same thing, right? So why you have to really give the customer a reason of why he or she should come to you and not go to the others. Point number 1. Point number 2 is that if you're not able to do that, you'll not be able to retain the customer. Your business will start suffering. And today, as much as we all must have seen Shark Tanks, etc., right? We realize that being able to build some business on consumers and make some profitability come out is very, very important, right? And those are things that I think AI can help accomplish. Not just AI, actually, like segmenting customers and using the data in the right way is what is going to be able to help accomplish. And one thing I realized with my recent stint at Paisabazaar, right, I'm fairly new to this ecosystem, is that there are traditional banks that typically what you have to work with, right? And there are broken experiences for the customer. It is our onus as a fintech to be able to stitch those together, and it's extremely difficult. Now, while we may have data sitting with us, we may not have the luxury to be able to use it, right? And those are experiences that if we are able to stitch for the customer is what will actually bring delight for for us, for the customer, and the, let's say, the lender or the bank that we're working with. So a combination of these three is how we see data to be used.
I guess, yeah, that's very valid. In fact, it's an interesting point of view. I would want to take the trust element that you mentioned, right? And I do also want to now quiz you from a JAR's perspective. Let's take an example. Whenever I think of BFSI, I don't want my data to be part of any experimentation, right? And for me, making an investing option, let's say with JAR or maybe even with Paisabazaar or with Angel One or with Zuno, I want to be very sure and confident that my data is in right hands and the brand is not exploiting it in any manner. So while we are at a juncture where AI can change and make things very exciting for us, I do believe BFSI has a lot more responsibility on themselves to make sure it's done responsibly. So what's your take on that, Prashant, right? How are you dealing with, because a lot of analytics that you're doing is at the back end. So how do you make sure that the trust is also passed across to customer?
Absolutely. When it comes to trust, I believe two key ingredients is the informed consent and transparency, and one kind of ride on top of other. So, when it comes to transparency, we are very much upfront about what data we are using. We not only comply with the platform guidelines of Android, iOS, and other platform we are on. We are and not only to that or to the NPCI, and we basically go one step beyond, and we really want people to have full understanding of what data we are storing, how it will be used, and for what purpose it will be used for. And we always give a very clear exit option. You can always withdraw your consent. So that essentially is a bigger trust building notion. It's not like select and opt in. It's like scroll down and I agree. We don't really count on people not reading our terms and conditions, because if they read and then they give the informed consent, that's far more a bigger vote of confidence.
I guess that's interesting. So I guess now I move on from an Angel One's perspective. If I want to envision, right, apart from the customer journey experiences that you mentioned earlier, and also the other buckets where we are looking at risk, we are looking at, evading frauds that's happening or detecting frauds. What are the other applications? And there's a reason why I'm asking this is because a lot of times what happens is when we have normal dinner conversations as well at our home, there's a lot of buzz around how India is not in the forefront of the AI wave. But I strongly believe even when we look back in time, we were not in the forefront of cloud storage as well. But right now we are one of the biggest markets when we think about cloud storage and adoption. So I am fairly confident that while we might not have made the initial first move, but from an application point of view, I guess our BFSI segment in particular can be a leading example for brands out there, BFSI brands out there who are trying to keep a thin balance between adoption as well as security. So what's your take, apart from these use cases, where else you would envision?
There are two aspects to this, right? One, that AI is not the only thing, right, that will take over everything. Even today, wherever we are using AI to solve a problem, there is always a human intervention that comes in. There's always a double check that आज अगर ये भेजना है हमें कुछ, so there's always somebody checking whether this is right or wrong. There are enough examples where AI has hallucinated, sent some wrong stuff. So there is always, so far there's always that feeling that there has to be some manual sort of check before the task is completed by AI. But I think what is happening today is that we are not relying 100% on AI to complete a task. We are only taking the help of AI to make few tasks more efficient for now, right? If I talk with respect to Angel and what we are doing there, again, in terms of customer experience, essentially, right? And say if I take the example of driving top of the funnel, where you want to get more and more people to the app, that's where the digital funnel starts, correct? So there are four sort of pillars to that, right? Essentially, what channel you want to communicate to the user, what kind of campaigns you're running, what is the content that you're sending, essentially, and what is the user experience that you want to drive out of what you're doing, right? For us, the content piece and the user experience piece, about 80% of that is now driven by AI. What I mean by that is, say for example, I have designers who have to churn out content and creatives every day, right? What used to happen every day, or what used to happen in the past, was one designer, for example, could churn out one creative in a day, right? Because he has to start from scratch. He has to imagine, he has to get that thought, and then come out with an output. Now what she is able to do is that they are able to get output of about 3 times more. Because 50% of the work is getting done by some outputs which AI is given. You go and give a prompt to whatever Mid-Journey or whatever tool that you're using, that this is the inspiration, this is my thought. 50% of the work is getting done by AI. Balance 50% is being done by a human. But there's still efficiency coming in, right? So a lot of efficiency is coming in with a lot of input from a human on the other side. Second is on the compliance front, right? We are mostly, all of us are in fairly regulated environment, and most of the stuff that goes out of our of our marketing or of our communication has to go through this whole compliance loop with an internal compliance, going to the exchanges and finding out whether this is okay to send out to the user, and then you get, so there's a good lead time of about 14-15 days. If you have a wow idea today, right? If I get a wow idea कि मेरे को ये marketing campaign करनी है, कल users को भेजना है, वो 15 days के बाद ही होगी. What we are trying to build now is that there's a pipeline which is getting built where whatever you're generating goes through an AI engine which is sort of taking input from all the compliance things that have been already done in the past, right? So the output now is very close to being compliant. So that time to market is suddenly shrinking, right? Suddenly the 15 days has come down to 10 days for us, and we are hoping that eventually it come down to 5 days. So this is the efficiency bit that I'm talking about, but I think there's a long way to go. These are small use cases that we've picked up and seen some green shoots, but I don't see it completely getting AI driven anytime soon.
I'm sure there's going to be a curve of adoption, but that also brings me to other point, which Tarun, I would want you to enlighten us on. So we heard about, let's say, time to market, right? That's one KPI potentially right now. We're aiming to get impacted by AI. What are the other KPIs? Because a lot of times we end up talking about visions, we're talking about use cases getting automated. But what are the KPIs that you are trying to chase when you think of adoption of AI in the organization? And what are the key areas that you want AI to drive essentially?
See, I think the stage where we are, I think a reduction of 10, 15, 20% of workload is what people are trying to use AI for, right? Like Prateek was saying that we're using it for the creative areas where, for example, summarizing claim notes, policy, I would say recommendations, or training agents, or generating synthetic data for testing. That's where we are, which reduces errors and which reduces some workload. So I think that's where we are. Where it becomes more really productive is we have some time, and because of the trust sensitive nature of the industry, we are cautiously treading towards it, and we might surely get there. And with human in the loop in the initial areas, it's very important to assess how the model is behaving. That's where I would like to stress on two things. First is, while we are building the solution, there has to be observability. When we're using it, there has to be explainability. Now, while we're using, you should be able to track back as to where what training data set is being built on, how has this output, been produced. So there has to be some sense or critical judgment of it. So I think for us, I really champion that we don't lose that critical judgment while using any tech. And we have to align the tech to business outcome. We have so many fancy AI tools available with us. Everything, it's so exciting right now, what the era which we are in. But we don't have to get lost in that frenzy, as I said earlier. And so yeah, that judgment, that understanding of how to use technology, that's what we are emphasizing, I guess.
So if I want to summarize, right, we have a few more minutes on the clock for us. The key themes that I would want all of you also to take away right now is definitely, first is making sure that the data is harmonized, so that eventually, if we are looking to automate it via any AI methodology, things are in place. I guess then the other bucket definitely stands out is risk assessment and fraud detection, because the fraudsters are definitely way smarter right now and we need to be one step ahead. And then eventually we also touched base quickly on the customer journey aspect of it. How do we incorporate content while obviously making sure it's done responsibly by keeping either human in loop or by looking at a supervised algorithm in which there's always a feedback given in. Are there any other themes, and this is an open question to anyone on the panel, if you want to throw some more lights, areas that, you know, caught attention, maybe something that's incorporated, if not at your respective brands, somewhere else that sounds very exciting from an AI perspective?
I'll go ahead.
Yeah.
I think if AI is becoming ubiquitous, people are realizing that it's a strategic necessity for an organization, whether it's to reduce workload or to improve efficiency. So there is potential for both efficiency and bias, right? So one has to really understand the technology and how it is performing for you to really use. And while technology is available, but we have to also understand the context in which one is operating. The current challenges of a technical debt, cultural resistance, or lack of observability, or lack of data or robustness or governance in your enterprise. Do not ignore that. Do not discount that. Right? So that's why aligning the tech to your business outcome is important, and not just implementing it haphazardly, because those stakes will be very high.
Yeah, too early, too soon is going to be a risk. I am aligned. Yeah. Any final thoughts from your side? Anything, I guess. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you expose a certain kind of application to a big enough user base, there are always some surprises. And you need to learn those, experiment in a very controlled fashion. Like, I'm old enough to remember when CRBT was introduced for the first time. Initial idea was that CRBT ringback tones are essentially a digital product, and it's a gift. It's basically, you don't hear that music. And nobody in India will pay for music, and that too, the music you don't hear. Somebody else will hear. So the idea was that you should target a segment which is like SEC1, like top of the client kind of people. So the properties which were used were like late night English news and all. Turns out every rickshawala in the world was using CRBT. You know, so that was a happy coincidence which kind of led to the invention of VAS industry as a whole. In my experiment with AI, I've realized that unless we look for those happy incidents, like serendipitous discoveries, we will miss out on it. So you should actively look, while using AI, you should always look for some small crucible, some small petri dish of data, where essentially an upward trend is there, and then you double down on it, and that will be very helpful.
So basically you're thinking of experimentation groups, A/B test, valid point. Yeah. Prateek, anything from your side? Thank you.
I think we'll have to face it that it's here to stay, right? It's not, we can't assume that this is just a wave and it's going to go away. But like you mentioned, right, we have to sort of adopt it very, very responsibly. I think we shouldn't be in a rush, or shouldn't have FOMO कि ये कर रहा है मुझे भी कुछ AI करके दिखाना है. It's not like that. You have to figure out what works for your business, and what is the business proposition or business value that you can drive using AI. What kind of efficiencies you can bring in. But eventually, I think there is no way out of it. I think the sooner we understand that, I think it's better for everyone. And one more thing, from a personal experience, I think the sooner we start using it in our daily lives, that's when we start appreciating the power of it, right? I saw that IO summit that happened, Google summit. I think if somebody's not seen it, I think everyone should watch it. Everybody in India should watch it. Right? It's a good 2-hour video. And I had to take breaks after every 15 minutes to digest कि ये क्या हो रहा है, मतलब what is all this happening, right? Where are we going? So I think it's an amazing time, but I think we'll have to do it very, very responsibly.
I guess definitely that there was a lot to unpack in that session, I would definitely say. And even I'm aligned. I guess a lot of us do agree that maybe right now the way we are dealing with AI is like we are driving on a, let's say, a tiger or any carnivores. Once we step down or we stop utilizing it, it's going to kill us. So I guess it's going to be that Kodak moment again happening if we don't try and ride the wave with AI. But yeah, I'm glad we could hear your thoughts on this interesting topic. While I know there's going to be small incremental growth in terms of how AI gets adopted, I'm looking forward to hear more stories from you guys, and thanks a lot. Thank
Surely, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.